Here we are, waiver wire. The beginning of week 16, let's look at players who've been added, been dropped. Do we waste moves on adding certain players or not? I guess we're going to find out. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and Throw the Child. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always, at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. Hit subscribe if you haven't done it. Hit the thumbs up. And go pre-bang the live trade deadline show Thursday, February the 8th, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have some fun, you and me, and whoever else is watching. Let's get 1,500 pre-bangs over there. Let's get 20,000 people in watching that show. Big goals, and hope we hit them. I was going to do that little introduction there. I was going to try a Patrick Stewart accent, but I didn't practice it before I hit record, and I don't think my Patrick Stewart's good enough. Should I try it? Nah, I don't know. Throw the child. It's not that good. That's not really... Yeah, it's not Patrick Stewart. Anyway, we'll work on it. We'll be better for next time. We're talking waiver wire. Again, I have preached to save your waiver wire ads. You don't need to use them for streaming to begin this week. You are better off sacrificing streaming for 3 days to see what value opens up at the trade deadline. But that doesn't mean that you have... There might be guys that are available who I go, why is this guy available? This is a better option than what might appear at the deadline. Usually at the deadline, you might get one or two guys. It might not be a huge amount of things that change from a fantasy perspective. And in fact, a general rule of thumb, Commandment 28B, is that more players lose value at the deadline than players that gain value at the deadline from a standard fantasy league perspective. That's my experience with it. It could be different every year, of course. So there are certain guys that if they're on your wire now, that you do just grab them because the value of them feels better than waiting for something that might not appear. And there's a lot of nuance to this. I can't sit here and individually tell every single person watching or listening to this show, you should add this guy, drop this guy, this makes sense in your league and your setting all the time. So it's all about blanket rules that you use as an overarching idea or thought, or at least get you thinking about certain things, and then you make the individual decisions based on your own team and your own league and your own settings, blah, blah, blah. How will that work? So let's look at must roster players. Looking at this through basically to the All-Star break, a little bit after the All-Star break in terms of guys that are under-rostered that I don't think should be under-rostered. And again, they might actually, in a lot of cases, be worth using one of those ads if for some reason they're still sitting on the waiver wire. And we are going to start in Chicago. I think it's pretty obvious to me that you just have to roster Alex Caruso. He's played like 37 minutes last game. Yeah, he could fall apart at any time, but it's fine. Patrick Williams will come back at some point, but I don't think it's going to matter too much. Zach LaVine is not coming back, very obviously. The Bulls might make moves. I don't know. I don't think they'd trade Caruso. I think they'd be more likely to move on from DeRozan than anybody, but who knows? The other thing I find interesting about the LaVine surgery is people are like, yeah, well, teams won't trade for him now. Like, if you're the Pistons and you were interested in trading for LaVine, you're not winning anything this season, so wouldn't you still have some interest in trading for him? Like, how does that alter things? Yeah, you miss out 20 games this season. Does that change things that much? I don't know. If I was that team, the Pistons, I would do a million things different, obviously, but I don't think that would have changed my opinion too much. If I was a good team looking to get LaVine, or a team that was having at least play-in aspirations, then different story. The Pistons, not so much. I know you're going to look at this and go, Josh, give it up on Paul Reed. Paul Reed is trash. Paul Reed is terrible. Stop it with Paul Reed. We are not adding him. We are dropping him, in fact. And I just think you're wrong. Simple as that. I'm not projecting Paul Reed to play 30 minutes a night while Joel Embiid is out, which might be for the whole season. I think he's a 25 to 27 minute a night player. and you could tell me he's been trash in every game that he started, that would also be a lie, which is cool. He's averaged 11 and 7 with 1.1 steals, 1.3 blocks, and 54% shooting. But in history, he's been a 59, 58% shooter. So, like, if that's trash and something you can just find floating around off your wire anywhere, good luck to you. You're doing better than me. So, last game was very bad for Paul Reed. He played 14 minutes. He had 2 and 4. Not a good game at all. But he was sick, apparently. Nick Nurse told us after the game, and that's why his minutes were limited. He also came out of the game 6 minutes into the third quarter. The game was a blowout, never returned. The game before, he had 7, 10, 4, 1, and 2 on 33%, which, if he shot 60%, was looking like a 13, 10, 4, 1, 2 game, which is amazing. So, I know you all have these issues because he doesn't score a huge amount of points, that you think that he's a trash fantasy player, and I beg you to look past the first column of the waiver wire of the box score. I beg you to. There is if you want to, look, again, it's your decision. If you want to drop Paul Reed, go ahead. If someone dropped him in my league and they haven't anywhere, I'd be grabbing him immediately. Jalen Suggs is getting a lot more minutes at the moment. There was a stage where he was sort of getting a little worn out and they were pumping his minutes down, but they're back. He's fine to add. Derek Lively's a bit of an iffy one because, of course, now he's dealing with another injury, 2 sprained ankles and a broken nose. I do think he is a pretty clear must-roster guy, and I'd be okay using an ad to get him. Same with Jeremy Sohan, who shot 11% last game, but as a general rule has been a very strong top 100 player over the last, say, 3, 4, 5 weeks. And the other one there is the bookend with the Bulls. We're talking Ayo Dosunmu, who might get neutered somewhat when Patrick Williams returns, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure how quickly Patrick Williams is going to return. I don't know that situation is going to resolve itself so quickly. And honestly, there's a chance that Williams misses more time. And there's also a chance that Dosunmu is just better than Williams because, again, let's be honest, Williams is bad. So, yeah, look, I'd be more than happy using ads on Caruso, Reed, Suggs, Sohan, Dosunmu. Lively's a little more iffy, but I probably still would do that. In a points league, it's a lot of the same names. We've got Sohan, Caruso, Reed, Lively, Dosunmu. The other name that's in there that's a little bit different is Brandon Podziemski, whose last 3 games have been amazing. 30-plus minutes in those games. One of them, Klay Thompson, was benched. One of them, Andrew Wiggins, was injured. And that really boosted him up. He was awesome. He's been unbelievably good. And you know that I think he's a very good player. It's more to do with how his minutes were sitting. But if Wiggins is going to miss, and he is, he's doubtful for their next game, then Podziemski has value. Now, this is a little bit iffy, this one, because is this a short-term, one-game scenario for Podziemski? I actually think that in a points league, he's probably worth an add and a hold longer term, even though there's issues with the consistency of minutes. There's a potential return of Paul, Moody, and Gary Payton as well. But I don't think it's relative. I don't think it's controversial to suggest that Podziemski's just been better than those players consistently this season. Like, has he been better than Klay Thompson for a chunk of games? Let's say half of the games. Like, yes. Has he been better than Andrew Wiggins for the majority of games? Yes. Has he been better than Chris Paul? Yeah, for some of it, yes. Moses Moody? Oh, absolutely. Gary Payton? Of course he has. Corey Joseph? Yes. So, how long can Kerr deny 32 minutes? That's what I don't know. He is iffy because if he plays 26 a night, he's probably not there. If he plays 30, he probably is. And at the moment, for the short term, I do have him at 30. But that could come undone if Paul does return. Hiccup. When Chris Paul returns. It's not an if about Chris Paul returning. He will return at some point. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. You're hiring for a small business, you need the right people. Because if you don't have the right people in your job, well, things just aren't going to be as successful as you want them to be, because staff are one of the biggest investments that any business makes, but getting the right people to run your business or to be a part of it is key, and that's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. LinkedIn is not just another job board, it's LinkedIn, man. You get access to over a billion professionals, and you can stick your job right in front of their noses, giving you that access that you can't get anywhere else apart from LinkedIn. Hiring becomes easy when you have that many quality candidates. In fact, small business owners say that they get a qualified candidate within 24 hours, 86% of the time when they post on LinkedIn Jobs. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs is the number one site for small businesses. There are 2.5 million small businesses that use LinkedIn for hiring. Yes, and it's constantly finding ways to make the process easier. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode is also brought to you by BetterHelp. Yes, BetterHelp. We talk about therapy often on this show in many different aspects. But sometimes we just need to get things off our chest. It might be something big. It might be something small. But sometimes things can get to you in life. And it's important to let that out, especially getting to talk to someone who is unbiased on your life. So if there's something that you really feel strongly about, do it. Like I said the other day, I have some real issues with the way that things get portrayed in sports media at the moment. And it bothers me to no end. So sometimes I sit and vent to my partner, but that's not what she's there for. So therapy will be an outlet for me to do that, to go and talk about that, and to go and get things off my chest that really do bother me, and I've got to find ways to push through that sort of stuff. Therapy can be different for everyone. You can have big problems, which is, again, something that happens a lot, or we can have small problems that are really trivial, but they still impact us. So if you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. Okay, so we've talked about the must-roster players. Let's look at some guys who I think can be droppable.
Get that garbage out of here!
So again, when we talk droppable, these are guys that if they are sitting on your roster, you don't have to go and drop them. You don't have to drop them at all. But when we are looking to the trade deadline coming up in 3 days' time, trade deadline show Thursday, February the 8th, 1 p.m., you can look at them and go, do I really need to hold on to this guy? Or is he expendable? And that is another key thing for this week. Look at your roster. Who are you okay moving on from? Do you have a team comprised of all top 90 players? Then you're probably in pretty good standing. Do you have 3 random players at the back end of your roster? Marvin Bagleys and you've got what other name? You're trying a Precious Achua in that spot, or you've got a Benedict Mathurin or an Andrew Nembhard or wherever. And you go, okay, they're doing my little things at the moment, but when push comes to shove, if I need to take a flyer on someone whose value might rise significantly, who is expendable? Who do I drop in the heat of the moment? And that's what we're talking about here with these droppable players, droppable cats, in fact. These are the category league guys. I've only got 4 names on there. I'm not going to go over the top with it. Spencer Dinwiddie just does not need to be rostered. I'd almost go as far as to say that you just should get rid of him in general. He will have better games than what he's had recently, but the return of Ben Simmons, the play of Cam Thomas, has meant that Dinwiddie is just not needed as much. And the play of Lonnie Walker. He's the odd man out there. So he's only getting 25 a night instead of getting 35 a night. He needs 33 at least. You can very easily move on from Spencer Dinwiddie. The next one is the horse, Keldon Johnson. This is not for everybody in category leagues. In points leagues, we'll get to your list in a second. Category leagues, we know the issues with Keldon. He is a guy that can score, who doesn't always do it efficiently, who doesn't get defensive stats, who's a low rebound, low assist, low volume 3 player, and that's a bad category league player. That's a worse Rowan Barrett, to be honest. He can have the occasional good scoring game, which is the opposite of the Paul Reed, where he has 17 points. You go, Joshua, an idiot. Why would I drop Keldon Johnson? Well, he had 17, 2-1 with 0 steals, 0 blocks on 36% shooting and shot 72 from the line. That is why. Because he just doesn't contribute in other areas. And with him on the bench and likely staying on the bench, because honestly, his role in the NBA is a bench player, I don't think he needs to be held on to. Now, you can hold him. If you need the scoring, it's okay. But also consider him expendable. And I think Buddy Hield's on this list as well. Much like Keldon, you can absolutely roster Buddy if you want. Being able to peg Buddy Hield has been one of the most difficult tasks of this season. Also, being able to figure out what his value is. Buddy has been up and down. Started off the season with a 4-week run of being unrosterable. They made the switch. He started. He was a must-roster player. He saw his minutes production drop back down. He went to the bench and he became droppable. Then there was a trade and he moved back into the starting lineup and he played big minutes and he was a must-roster player. And then he's moved back to the bench again and I just don't know. And their rotations are all over the place. So that level of uncertainty with that limited upside means it just doesn't need to be rostered. He can be, but he moves into the Leaky Beasley, Kevin Huerter, Sadiq Bey, streamers of points and threes. That's what he does. And the other one there is Russell Westbrook. Because if it's Zubats is back, or very close to returning, Westbrook is a guy that hurts in many areas. He had quite a couple of good games with Zubats out, but the fact is he just cannot play big minutes next to Zubats. So he's going to be sitting there at 21, 22 minutes a night. He's an assists type streamer who just does not need to be considered a must roster player in my mind. For points leagues, a few more guys. These are all guys who are rostered in over 60% of leagues who I don't think crack the top 145 rest of season. So I've got Buddy Hield on that list. I've got Dennis Schroeder on that list for the points leagues as well. Now, in category leagues, I'd be okay dropping Schroeder there too. But in points leagues, he's on a healthy team. He's a 23-minute-a-night player. Now, sure, they might move Trent. They might move Brown. Sometimes we get caught up in there, well, what if they trade these players? That's true, but trades don't happen in a vacuum. I would be very skeptical that Bruce Brown and Gary Trent got traded from the Raptors, both of them to begin with. I don't think that would happen. And no one comes back in a deal. Not to say that Schroeder wouldn't play over the player coming back. He might, but he also might not. It's not as clear as those guys go and he plays 30 minutes. So I don't think he needs to be held. And the guy under him is his teammate, Bruce Brown, who in category leagues has got more upside, but in points leagues he doesn't. He might get traded to a spot where he plays 30 minutes. He might go to a spot where he plays 25. He might go to a spot where he plays 35. He might stay in Toronto and play 32. I don't know. But in a points league, the upside's not high enough for me to care. Grayson Allen's also on this list for points leagues. Really strong category league season. Not enough volume for a points league. You just don't need to be rostering him. Spencer Dinwiddie's on that list too. And the last one is Mark Williams. And this goes across everything. Williams has been a drop for about 6 weeks. When he was getting the daily doubtful tags, we needed to hold because we just didn't know. I have a genuine fear that he won't play again this season. I don't know that for sure, but I think we're getting to that stage. He should have been dropped about 6 weeks ago. I think it's very clear that you drop him now. And especially with a few more injuries cropping up across the league, you are not going to have that injured reserve slot available for Mark Williams. So just move on. There's no reason. And if he comes back, he's going to be pretty limited. He's going to be minute splitting. He's going to be sitting out games. No, there's just no reason to be holding on, I don't think, at this point to Mark Williams. Who is the most added player, or the most added players, over the last 48 hours? Well, it's a man we've already spoken about. It is Brandon Pajemski, who is the most added player, up 36% according to our advanced metric at Basketball Monster. His last 3 games have been amazing. I get people doing that. Again, I have that skepticism about how they utilize him game by game. I have some skepticism about how Steve Kerr utilizes him each game. And I know I mentioned this the other day, and it's a very niche comment. It makes me laugh every time. And Warriors people, you're going to laugh at it. Another absolute banger of a Jim Park Spaces on Twitter last night about Steve Kerr. Like, is that man okay? Like, I think the answer is no, very clearly. But man, what an absolute banger that was. That's like Emmy-worthy performances. Anyway, Scoot Henderson up 25%. Scoot is, you might not be paying a huge amount of attention. Scoot is flying at the moment. He's scoring well. He's hitting, I think over his last 5 games, 50% from 3. Obviously, it'll come down. He's at 90% from the free throw line on more attempts. It does take a little bit of courage to wait for them to say, yeah, Scoot's playing 33 a night, and Sharp is going to come back, and Brogdon's still hanging around like a bad smell. But Scoot's figuring it out. Rookie point guards take a long time. Sometimes it's year 2, Garland Fox. Sometimes it's December, Trae Young. Sometimes it's February, Scoot Henderson. And that's how it feels at the moment. And then Cam Whitmore. Well, with Cam Whitmore, I said, I don't think I'd be chasing 20 points in 18 minutes. It seems unrealistic for him to keep doing that. Well, since I've said that, I think he's done it in 3 more games. I still think it's unrealistic. The man's getting like 32% usage. He's shooting 57% or whatever it is from the field. He's doing nothing else apart from score, which is fine. But that minutes crunch is real. And while it's okay to do it, like this is what I wouldn't use a waiver move on to begin week 16. I wouldn't be like, well, I'm going to grab Cam Whitmore and I'm going to ride out these games of high scoring. That to me is a waste because, again, how's the path to minutes? Does Tari Eason not play at all when he returns? Do they eliminate Dylan Brooks and Jabari Smith consistently? Does Cam Whitmore continue to be a 20-point scorer in 19 minutes a game and become the 3rd player in NBA history to score more points than played minutes with Embiid and Wilt Chamberlain? I think that's probably unlikely, yeah? So, that's where I have some skepticism on that, even though he's playing really well. And the same goes with his teammate, Amen Thompson, who's the 2nd most highest added player on Yahoo, up 6,400 teams. Amen is putting up great numbers. I love Amen Thompson. I think Amen Thompson is going to be a perennial top 25 fantasy player. I had him number 2. I didn't. Had him and Scoot equal number 2 on my Dynasty rookie ranking list. I think he's going to be amazing. He's a top 77 player. That's a very specific number because he's actually just 77th over the last 2 weeks, putting up amazing numbers. Basically because he's hitting 85 from the line and averaging 1.9 steals. To me, a 18, 19 minute a night player averaging 7 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, whatever it is not worth a must roster scenario situation. I don't think they're moving Fred VanVleet or Jalen Green or Dylan Brooks. A man's got to get 20 a night. It might get to 22. I don't think it's a must roster. I think he's a stream guy, and I don't think you need to have burnt a waiver ad on him during the week for week 16. Corey Kispert, one of the most added players. That's because You've got the absence of Kyle Kuzma on Sunday. I think that Kismet's a very, very empty player, and he probably needs 2 players out of that lineup to pump him full of enough usage for it to matter. He probably needs Poole and Kuzma gone, because all he does is have points and threes. He does nothing else, but if he does that in enough volume, like if he gets 28% usage and averages 25 points with 5 threes, that's enough to be a 12-team league guy, but you need 2 things to happen for that to be the case. So he's fine, but I wouldn't have burnt an ad if it counts in week 16. And the last one, there's TJ McConnell, who started last game for Halliburton. Again, absolutely would not bother with a stream on him. Nembhard was a 6-second man in that last game. Their rotation continues to be an absolute nightmare. I don't know how long Halliburton's minutes restriction will go. And literally, one game before this, TJ was a DNP CD. He was not out for personal reasons the game before. He was a DNP. And then he started the next game, and Nembhard was a functional DNP as well. So, yeah, no, absolutely not with that one. We're not adding TJ McConnell in this situation. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Happy Super Bowl to all of you who celebrate, thanks to FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Super Bowl Sunday is a week away right now. So, you need to start planning. What are you doing? Where are you going? Who are you watching it with? What snacks are you doing? What food do you need to order? What's your position on the couch? What's your remote control hierarchy? And what super bets are you going to play? Because with FanDuel, you can get one last W for the football season, or 2 or 3, at Super Bowl 58. Pick the winner, Chiefs. Pick the Super Bowl MVP, Mahomes. Go and look at the receiving yards props for McCaffrey, or Samuel, or Ayuk, or Kittle, or Kelsey. Go the over-unders on those. So many different options that you can pick over at FanDuel, on the app, which is easy to use. And new customers, you got a great thing for you, because you can get $200 in bonus bets if you place a $5 or more bet, and it wins. That's all you need to do. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official partner, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, so we've done the most added players. Let's look at who's been dropped the most.
Get that garbage out of here!
All right, so as you can see on that little graphic that flicked across, Andrew Nembhard's one of them. Obviously, the most dropped player is the skater boy, Zach LaVine. So you can, it's not that complicated. You can go and move him to your waiver wire very clearly. What a disappointing season for LaVine, who missed 5 games total last season. Again, I will do the analysis on this at the end of the season. Previous season's games played do not correlate to next season games played. It does not happen. It does not work. It is absolutely more important if you're looking at guys who exceed in totals the year before and play a lot of games. That is where that does not guarantee high games the next season. It just absolutely does not. You can make an argument the guys that miss more time are more likely to miss games, and I will do a bit more split analysis on that. But the guys that stay healthy, there is absolutely zero correlation on that for the season coming afterwards. It's just none. So don't use totals, ever. Andrew Nembhard, down 25%. Yeah, the 6-second man. Now, I apologize to Andrew for labeling him that. I'm sure he's a very robust and full of endurance man, but he played 6 seconds last game. And with Halliburton, McConnell, Hield, Matherin, everyone in there, and he's not good enough anyway. Just, yeah, very easy job. What am I talking about? Marvin Bagley down 21%. Yes, finally, we're realizing that as an 18-minute backup, Bagley is not necessarily the guy to roster, and he's also hurt. The thing I would say there is that maybe we don't need to drop him 3-4 days away from the deadline, given that maybe Gafford is traded. I don't think Gafford will be traded. And if Bagley does start and play 31 minutes again, that would make that team horrific, but he would put up numbers unquestioned. So I would consider a hold if I had him, and I do have him in one league, and I am holding him. Again, I think the chance of Gafford being dealt are probably under 5%, but you never know. One thing we always want to look at when we're talking about trade deadline things is the very easy one-for-one switch is backup point guards, backup centers. That's the easy one-for-one switch. If it's a 2, a 3, or a 4, so many different guys can come back in those deals and switch into their spots, split their minutes, and have no real overall value. Centers, point guards, they're the ones you're key on. Even with point guards, like if Tyus Jones moves, that doesn't mean the backup point guard, Delon Wright's going to play the minutes. They'll just put Jordan Poole in that spot, I'm guessing, and John Davis, and oh my God, Bilal or Corey Kispert will move into the 2. All right, so centers are usually the big one. Paul Reed's dropped in almost 5,000 leagues. Guys, you are way too quick on the trigger there. Way too quick. Hey, if he plays 15 minutes a night for the next 3 games, I'll be like, all right, Nick Nurse has lost faith. But again, he started 12 games. He averages 25 minutes a game in those games. So the quick and easy thing, people go, well, he's their new Boucher. Nurse hates him like Boucher. He's just not going to play him. We've got 12 games of data on that. And that's just not true. Like, he's played 25 minutes a night. And if it wasn't for the last game where he was sick, it would have been 26 minutes in 11 games. So, like, that's fine. It's fine. And you don't need to have dropped after one game. Insanely overreactive. Andy Wiggins down. Yeah, look, Wiggins had started to play much better and he was a guy to grab. And then the last 2 games were poor and then he got hurt. So I'm okay. He's not high enough upside to deal with nonsense. And the last one there is Rashawn Holmes, which was wild because he started the game before. He played 30 minutes. He got a double-double. Now, it was a very low-end double-double and took a lot of minutes to get there. And then he DNP'd the next game. This is why we didn't want to react and add him after that one game. And people did. I understand why they did, but it very clearly did not pan out. Let's look at players who are hot. Someone said, man, Josh, you need to go and update your hot players list. Because, it used to be Rubio, Oubre, Ibaka. 2 of those guys aren't in the NBA anymore. Maybe I do need to update my list. And someone chucked out a name, said Jalen Duren should be on the hot players list. Do you think Jalen Duren's hot? I don't know. He's all right. He's all right. I wouldn't say he's in the top 6. But anyway, the top 6 hot players, which are top 100 players per game over the last week. We're going to go to Indiana. We're going to talk sticks. Jalen Smith, I don't trust it at all. One of those games was without Miles Turner. Smith dealing with his own injury. We're not wasting an ad on adding him. We are on Ayo Dosunmu, who's top 100. Very clear ad. Lonnie Walker, been very surprising. Now, I don't really know how Lonnie fits in because the minutes have been pushed up with Dorian Finney-Smith out all of those games and Dennis Smith out one of them. And Lonnie has been great. I have a checkered history with Lonnie, and by checkered I mean me telling you he's bad for 4 years and being correct for 4 years. But these last games have been good. And even before he got hurt this season, he was playing well. Now, he is quite an empty player. He's a scoring guy who needs high efficiency, and that has come. But can that continue? Can he do other stuff? And can he play 30 minutes? I'm not willing to waste a waiver move on Lonnie Walker for this week because I don't really see how he's a 30-minute-a-night player every night with Cam Thomas getting 30, 35 a night. I don't see how it happens. And playing the 240 game with the Nets is really quite difficult to get him in those minutes. But he's been great. Jordan Nwora is in there. He has been really, really solid. He takes a lot of shots. He's really, if you want to go deep deadline stashing, Nwora's probably the guy. Because if the Raptors clear out a Brown or a Trent and they don't bring anyone back they actually want to use, which is possible, and then they start shutting guys down with fake injuries, Nwora will come in. He'll jack up a ton of shots. He's a good rebounder for his position as well. At the moment, he's been playing well because Quickly and Barrett have been out, and Barrett's still out, and he might be back soon. But Nwora's playing well. I wouldn't add him, but he's a name to watch. Jackson Hayes has been really good with Anthony Davis out. We're not adding him. And Podziemski, we talked about him at length already. Some injury replacement players. Again, these are usually the short-term streams that we're trying to avoid beginning this week, but I'm going to mention who we're talking about here. Maxi Kleber. With Derek Lively out, Kleber played 30 minutes last game. Now, they've got a back-to-back coming up Monday, Tuesday, so I'm not sure if Kleber's going to play both of those, but if you say, there are leagues like Locked On Fantasy Basketball where you've got unlimited ads, so you don't have to worry about saving ads for the deadline. You've got unlimited ads, so you could try Kleber in there, and then if he sits the second game, you add Holmes back in or whatever it is, right? So that's where this list is for. People who've got unlimited ads or they've got 7 ads for the week or something where you don't have to worry about burning them out before the deadline. Got Tim Hardaway as an injury replacement because when Kyrie is back and Exum is back, Hardaway will be okay, but he'll be more on the borderline zone. So to me, he is a bit of an injury replacement who's been fairly solid all season because someone's been out. And I wouldn't say that you have to 100% drop him when those guys come back, but his value is definitely in that must territory because players are injured. I've got the big sneeze on here, Precious Achiuwa. Someone said to me, man, how can you, you're recommending him now, but you hate him. I don't think he's very good, and I'll continue to tell you that I don't think he's very good. He is a guy that uses outsized amount of possessions on offense and is horribly inefficient. Look at the last 2 games. Under 35% shooting as a big man in 2 games in a row. He's playing well at the moment, or he's putting up numbers at the moment because he's playing 43 minutes a night. His defense has been improved absolutely for sure. There's no doubt about that, but I really, really don't think that he's a 42-minute-a-night player when OG Anunoby and Quentin Grimes return. I don't think that's going to be the case. While they're out, absolutely we use Precious Achiuwa. But the fact that he's getting so many minutes and he's still not able to crack the top 100 should show you how not good of a fantasy player he is. And when that goes down to 26 minutes, well, the top 200 will be a struggle, I'm guessing. Nick Richards is on there. Again, he's still not rostered in enough leagues. Mark Williams is old twisty back's not coming back. I don't think Richards just needs to be rostered. Rui Hachimura's on this list. Again, do I think Rui Hachimura is a good player? I don't. Josh, you didn't watch the playoffs. I did. He was good in some matchups and others he wasn't. I think he only started 3 games. People got this idea that he played 40 minutes a night, starting every game in the playoffs. Didn't he start like 3 games? It was a low amount. Regardless, Rui's a guy that scores, does it on some mid-range shooting, and doesn't do anything else. And yes, Jared Vanderbilt is out, and allegedly Rui Hachimura is going to be starting for the foreseeable future over Torian Prince. But we saw last game Hachimura started, played 23 minutes, Prince played 32, so who cares? Rui's okay in a points league scenario. If he played 32 minutes a night, he would be a points league guy. He would not be a category league guy outside of streaming for the points category, but I'm not even confident he's going to play 32 a night. We saw last game, he didn't do it. So, like, he's on this list as a name to pay attention to, and his value is rising because I do think, and like I said this the other day about Jared Vanderbilt bar, I said, read the words that Woj is tweeting. They are telling you this is a bad injury and he's probably done for the season. That was screaming Jones fracture to me. They're not saying what it is. But even again, Woj putting out another thing about Vanderbilt saying, yeah, he might be done. Like, this is all coded stuff that they're not allowed to officially say it. But Vanderbilt's done. Like, I'm not, I can't say I'm 100%, but I'm like 90% confident the Vanderbilt season is over. The way it looked, the injury, all of the words coming out of Woj that he's tweeting out, every word that he says out loud about it that makes me sound so bogan. Yeah, but who says that? What are you up to? Everything that he says is suggesting to me that this is not 2 weeks for Vanderbilt. This is the rest of the season. So Hachimura and Prince are going to get boosts. And the last one there is Mo Bamba, who, despite what you might think about Paul Reed sucking last game, it wasn't because Bamba played well. He played 15 minutes as well. They went a lot smaller with Marcus Morris at times, which is not going to work every game. That was against a Nets team that was quite small also, and that enabled that to happen. Bamba is a guy that you can stream in for blocks and threes, but he's also just terrible. Like, he's not a very good player at all. And I don't see huge minutes for him. He's fine to use 14-team leagues, but again, struggled, did nothing last game. But he's got at least an improvement in value. Let's look at some other names that are important for us to talk about, and we get to this part of the show because it is important. And this man is rostered in still 64% of leagues, Onyeka Okongwu. I understand it's been a frustrating experience, but what we have now is the trade deadline coming up in 5 days, and Clint Capella is out 7 to 10 days with an abdominal strain now. We saw Okongwu go bananas the last 2 games. He played big minutes over Capella last game. I don't know this, and I probably should have checked in with my people in Atlanta about this. I think, and they probably wouldn't even know this anyway, I think that this means, how do I phrase this? I don't think he's going back to the bench. I think he will get the start with Capella out. Capella might get traded, he might not. I think everything has been trending in Okongwu's direction. I think this is the tipping point. I think this is it. I think he starts the rest of the way. I don't know that at all. I am guessing, and Capella might be back in 10 days, and he takes the starting job back, plays his 24 minutes. But if Okongwu's on your wire, yes, you burn an ad. You add Onyeka Okongwu. He is going to be a 30-plus minute a night player. Deeper leagues go to Bruno Fernando. Okongwu's going to be there. You add him, you use him, and I don't think, I'll put it, let's say 60%. I'll put a 60% chance that he does not cede the starting job back, is my guess. A lot of gut in there, because I've got a big gut because I'm a fat bastard. But that's where I'm sitting with that. I've got Asar Thompson on this list because I don't know. I do think eventually someone will knock some sense into Tavares Williams Jr. and Asar will play 30 a night starting in the middle of March, not at the deadline. I'm not sure whether Burks or Bogdanovic are going to be traded. Even if they are, do I have faith that Monty's going to play Asar there? No, not really. But I do think at some point tendonitis, soreness will crop up at some point for the Pistons, and Asar will get a 30-minute run, and he'll be back in our good graces. Holding now is tough, but it's worth watching. I got Bob Portis there. Brook Lopez is out again on Sunday with the personal issue. I don't think that Bob is a must roster rest of season, but as long as Brook is out, Brook's, I believe, having a baby, so it's not a long-term thing, that Portis will be in that mix. I got Santi Aldama on this list because, again, his name always comes up. And someone tagged me in a comment from Dan Besbris about this other day. It's like, oh, you and Josh should fight about this. You're so opposite on Santi. And I said, that's cool. Dan can have his opinion on Santi. I have my opinion on Santi. Whoever's right, whatever. He thinks that he's a must-roster guy. I don't. Now, Santi will show those games where he's really good. And then he'll have the 26-minute game where he has 6 points on 30% shooting. And, of course, like every Grizzlies player, he's back on the injury report. That's why I don't have faith in Santi. I don't have faith in his per minute production. I don't have faith in his health. I don't have faith in that team. So that's why I don't look at him as a must roster guy. The only guys I look at on that team are Jaren and Vince, and I'll be trying to get off Jaren as quickly as I can. I would accept any top 50 player back for Jaren Jackson. Scottie Pippen's on that list too. Like, great game, G League DNP. What happens when there's Rose and there's Kennard and there's Gilead and there's Pippen? It's not reliable. If we hear news that Pippen starts, then you stream him in, but maybe we talk mid-March and we get some stability with the million guys ruled out. It's just so hard to rely upon it. But he's a name we keep in mind. And the last one there is Benedict Mather. I thought he was worth mentioning. He's been added in a lot of spots. He was great last game. He scored well. He started. He played big minutes. Of course, as per usual, he's back on the injury report. And I don't really have huge amounts of faith in his production. So I think he's more of a points league guy than a category league guy, but I just thought it was worth mentioning that he is there. And that brings us to the end of the Waiver Wire show. Don't forget to go and pre-bang the trade deadline show. Hit the thumbs up on it, put it in your calendar, notifications, all of that stuff. And guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.